Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another Into the Darkness, my segment on the channel dedicated to all things horror on film and potentially television. And this time, instead of doing a full-fledged franchise, I thought I'd change things up a bit and pick two particular films, the first one and its sequel. And to join me to talk about these two particular films, of course, I have my good friend Anthony Jordan of Movies and Gaming. And of course, we have Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio. What's up, gentlemen?
Sup?
Hello.
Yes. And the two particular films that I chose this time around to just be a bit different is none other than The Fly, and of course its sequel, The Fly 2. Now, The Fly for me has always been kind of an interesting horror slash science fiction film to me. I've always found it an interesting watch. But Anthony Jordan, can you remember the first time you seen The Fly?
I would have been in middle school, and it was a WB11 late movie, like 3 o'clock in the morning late. And I watched it, and it was severely edited for network TV. But on my first watch, I hated it. Then when I watched it, when I got older, and I'll get into it as we talk about it, I found myself liking it a lot more. And I should also say I seen The Fly 2 before I seen The Fly.
Yes, because as we know, there was The Fly, the first one that came out in 1958, which then they did The Return of the Fly, then The Curse of the Fly, and then obviously they decided to remake this franchise in the 1980s, but I didn't want to focus on the original films because I feel it's like there's something there. For me, the originals are more science fiction, where I feel this is a mixture of science fiction but also grotesque horror, body horror. So that's why I chose to particularly do the one from 1986 and 1989. But DJ Anubis, can you remember when you first seen The Fly?
It was definitely not in the theaters. I think that I saw both of them basically when they came to like HBO or something like that in the 80s or 90s. And that's when I kind of had a chance to go sit down with them and watch them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was born in 1983, so I certainly didn't see this when it first come out. I do remember catching it like on a late night screening on television at some point. But when I first caught this film, it was probably when it was at the halfway point, and I just remember seeing Jeff Goldblum in like the horrible makeup and like obviously the prosthetics and just being totally freaked out. And then later on, I must have been about 17, 18. I give it a full watch, and I found it a really interesting movie. But by the time I was 18, obviously the director of this movie, which was David Cronenberg, he had kind of built his reputation on being a kind of director who created like these darker toned films. And so I started becoming a fan of him and his work. And so because I was becoming a fan of him and his work, that's when I decided to check out The Fly fully. The film series of The Fly is a sequence of science fiction horror films consisting of an original series started in 1958 and a remake series made in the 1980s. The first film of the series, The Fly, was produced and distributed by 20th Century Fox. In 1958 as a colour film. The two following black and white sequels, Return of the Fly and Curse of the Fly, both produced by Associated Producers, were released in 1959 and 1965 respectively. The original film was remade in 1986, The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg. The remake received the Academy Award for up in 1987. Its sequel, The Fly 2, was released in 1989. All 5 films within the series were distributed by 20th Century Fox. And there we go. That's just a little information about The Fly. But Anthony Jordan, do you want to kick us off with this one?
The film begins with Gina Davis's character at this expo, and she meets Jeff Goldblum, and he talks to her, and he awkwardly charms her and convinces her, hey, come to my place. I got something. This stuff here is boring. If you want to see something like really revolutionary, come with me. And he takes her to his place, and he has these 2 strange devices that David Cronenberg actually had modeled after the engine to his motorcycle. Fun fact. And he shows that it's a teleportation device, and the only problem with it's something where you can step in, and then the next thing you know, a few seconds later, you're in another country. But the problem is he can't get it to work with organic matter just yet, which is going to be a big for the film.
And there's like that really funny flirtatious moment where he says, do you have, a piece of jewelry or a bit of, something that's, very personal to you that I can use to show you this device? Because she kept on calling it like a giant telephone.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's that very like kind of sexy scene, because Gina Davis in this is...
I talked about this, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but I talked about this with Walter when we did the Thelma and Louise. Like, I've never really been that attracted to Gina Davis, like as far as like a sex pot, but she has this way about her in that film as well as this one to kind of sell herself to be very sexy. Like, she is a very beautiful woman. But there's something like, I don't know, I've never been able to like gravitate her like I would like Michelle Pfeiffer or somebody, but she just has her way of muting or putting out there that she is very sexy. She has this way about her which is really cool. And so like in that scene you're talking about, she's taking off her stock, and I'm like, that's hot.
Like you say, like I get what you're talking about. For me, like I personally think she's a very beautiful woman, very attractive, but at the same time it's more about like a personality quirks that she gives off that makes you like go, I want to get to know this woman,
right?
And that's how you get hooked in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they do that scene where puts the stocking into the telephone, and then basically it gets transported to the other side, and she's like totally blown away. But she's obviously a journalist for this scientific magazine, and he's like, oh shit, I should not have done that, because now she kind of wanted to expose these experiments to the world, and he's kind of now starting to freak out about that.
Yeah,
just like work a deal out with her that you keep everything hush for now, and you'll get exclusive. You'll be the one that exclusively gets to reveal everything. And we also find out that because he's doing this for corporate, he'll never be credited for the invention. But the strange thing is, like, he's not bitter about it. He's actually just content knowing that if he succeeds, that he'll get to live with the knowledge that he invented something that's going to change the world.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of trapped in this thing where, he's a guy that doesn't get out much. And so he's a little bit socially awkward at first. But also, as you said, Anthony, like, once she like starts to try to say, the world has to know about this, like he gets paranoid because it's almost like a copyright thing. It's like he doesn't want that to happen because people will steal the idea. So he goes and he gives her this option, like, look, just, hang out with me. I'll show you how it works. I'm going to show you how I can actually fix it to where we can do organic matter and live people or creatures to one thing, because they did try it. And the end result is not very good when it's not working properly, which is a running theme through both movies. But he is somebody that's kind of socially awkward, but at the same time, he's got this ego. Like he definitely wants this. This is his baby. And if it goes live, he wants to make sure that he's going to get credit for it.
Yeah. And I don't know if Anthony ever thought about this. The way he behaves and how he's like obsessed with the telepods. I got like Doctor Who vibes.
I guess a dark Doctor Who, I can kind of
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, like obviously Anthony's a big Doctor Who fan, and he's like this weird, like geeky, socially awkward scientist. And I generally feel as like as the plot progresses, he's like got these quirks that you see in the Doctor Who television series, and I wonder if some of his personality traits and like some of what you see with the experimentations, if it was inspired by elements of Doctor Who.
Could
That
be.
would be- if I got to meet him, I would have to ask him that now.
Yeah. What Cronenberg?
No, Goldblum.
Yeah,
Like,
Goldblum. Yeah.
if he himself was like a Doctor Who fan and like took some inspiration from that in his performance.
I do know he likes British culture and he does a lot. Yeah, he does a lot of, you know, how he's got his own bands and he does his own piano music. He does a lot of shows here in the UK, like at the Royal Albert Hall. So he's kind of integrated himself into like British society and pop culture, and he does a lot of musical, like classic musical television programming in the UK as well for like Sky Arts, which is a premium like musical channel that talks more about theatres and orchestras and that kind of stuff. So
It sounds
you
like
never know. Yeah. So
It should be
obviously-
said that, like, even though there are other people in this film, it's really carried by three people, which is really amazing. You got Goldblum, Davis, and I think his name's John Getz.
this.
Yeah, and so they do an excellent job for carrying this film and acting the way they do, because I'm going to have more to say about Getz's character, because whenever I see him, I think of Men at Work with Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, which is a comedy, and he's like a dorky dude in that one, but trying to focus on this one, he's like a real douchebag at first, but as you see him in this film to the next, he really has this transformation of his character, which is kind of cool.
You know,
I was going to say that's what I like about the character. There's a switch, and it's done so organically because of his experience in the first movie that it worked brilliantly into the second movie.
You know about the like behind the scenes drama with the three of them, right?
No.
Okay, Goldblum and Davis were in an actual relationship when they were filming this, and
because they worked just real quick, they worked together on the other movie, the spaceship with the aliens, and Goldblum and Damon Wayans were playing aliens in that one.
Oh, I know which one you mean. Yeah, there were the three different
Earth Girls
aliens.
Are Easy. That Earth Girls Are Easy. I think you might have met her through that.
Anyway, because of the whole thing with the story that Stathis was her ex and there was that tension with them, it triggered a lot of jealousy in Goldblum. So there was like legit behind
on set attention.
Really? That's interesting.
Nice. Well, on screen, right? Let's make a movie about that then.
It probably helped all of their performances.
Yeah, definitely. But as the plot progresses, obviously she wants to potentially, expose the secret of this experiment and like you say, John Gettis's character is Stathius Burans. He's like her ex partner, but he's also like the publicist. And you have that scene where she goes back to her apartment and basically he's just let himself in and he's having a shower and she's like, give me your key back. I don't want you coming around here anymore. And he's like, I'll keep the key. So he becomes an unlikable control freak in many ways, shapes and forms. And he basically tells that Jeff Goldblum's character, which is Seth Brundle, he says he's basically a magician. He's a con artist. He's basically doing what he's doing to try and get into her pants is basically what he's trying to say. But then it's then revealed that his experiment worked with the tight, and then he decides to do like this experiment with a live chimpanzee, which goes horribly wrong. And he gets like put in a right downer when she decides to record all of his moments during his experimentations. And she goes, just be real at the camera, let us know how you feel. And he like starts to express himself. And it's because of this expression between him and her that they really get a connection and they start a romantic relationship.
That particular scene where he's expressing himself on the camera, that's like one of the single best moments in Goldblum's career.
Yes. So it's after that they begin this romantic relationship that he suddenly gets like inspired. And he gets an inspiration because he just can't figure out how like again, you know, an object, a non-organic object can be transported, but why an organic object, why organic matter can't be teleported. This is when he comes up with the idea to have the program read the organic matter to understand it, basically. And because he does this change, the next time he does a live experiment, it works. And this is where things really start to change.
Yeah.
So, do you want to carry on, Anthony?
Well, after that, what he did was he tested it with 2 steaks, and he has her try them, and he's like, she mentioned one tastes funny, and he go, that's because I sent it through the teleporter. And as he explained, he had to teach it to love the flesh, whatever that means. And we have the successful test with the other baboon, and it leads to them ultimately getting into a fight. And that's when he gets mad and he just decides, even though rightfully so, they needed to do more tests before they tested it on a human. He goes to test it on himself, but unfortunately a fly gets in the telepod, and this is where things go horribly wrong.
So basically the machine now, he's taught the machine to read DNA and genetic makeup. And he teaches the machine to understand it, utilize it, and then reform it on the other side of the teleporter. So obviously the 2 steaks, it did the 2 steaks. Then when he did it with the baboon, obviously the teleporter read and understood the DNA and the makeup of it. And then obviously when it transported, it had understood the DNA completely and then was able to recycle it and rebuild it on the other side. But of course, when he went in with the accidental with the fly and as the teleporter, because the machine's been taught to read, study, understand, and rebuild your DNA on the other side, when 2 different strains of DNA went through the teleporter, all it knew how to do was to try and genetically match the DNA and to build it together. And because of that, it joined the 2 DNA strands and the 2 sets of, you know, biology together to form this being that looks like him on one side, but inside his body slowly begins to change and his personality begins to change. And she then, of course, starts to see these changes throughout the course of the movie. You slowly get to see him like start to like exhibit, you know, his behaviors begin to change. He starts
subtle.
Yeah, it slowly happens slowly, but also there's the relationship between her and her publicist is strained, and he's now suspicious of things that's going on because of the event, because of like their now romantic relationship. And one of the best scenes is Jeff Goldblum's character generally begins to exhibit like animalistic kind of tendencies throughout the course of the movie, and his body slowly, as you can see from the images, slowly throughout the rest of the course of the movie starts to disintegrate into something completely not human at all, like this human fly hybrid. And there is one particular moment. Yes. There is one particular moment in this film that I thought was brilliant. And it's when obviously the publicist decides to go to to the apartment to have a look around, and he goes to confront him, and he doesn't realize how far gone he's changed, and how far gone he's Stratus Baran goes to see Seth Brundle, and the next thing you know, this happens.
There was and that was such a brilliant effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a deleted scene earlier in the film where he actually put the second baboon in the teleporter with a cat and teleported them, and it fused them together, but they took the scene out because they thought, well, after that, no one's going to sympathize with him anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think just for that, though. I think, yes, that would have been cruel to see that, but it also would have took away the reveal of him turning into the Fly, because if they did that, they would have seen, right, this
was after he would have been after he started turning, and he was trying to figure out how to fix it. And
all right,
cat and dog, when I say fuse, the cat and baboon would have fused together in this like deformed part cat, baboon abomination that died.
Mm-hmm. And Gina Davis's character, obviously, she's like at her wit's end, because basically she's fell in love with this guy. He's now suddenly out of control. He's not the man that she once knew. And he's slowly getting deeper into like this new animalistic behaviors. And it's literally torturing her.
And this whole stuff here, if you ever watched a loved one die, like this whole part from here on out, it like really hits in a different way.
Yeah. You know, there's many attempts where he tries to like change and to solve his problems, and at the end, there's the Bundlefly experiment at the end of the movie, where he tries one more time, and when he does it, she's hoping that this will have solved the problem when the door.
His plan was to grab her and just fuse her and the baby together into one creature.
Yeah, because obviously she's fell madly in love with him, and she now discovers she's pregnant, and so our more hormones and emotions are so high and all over. And she's trying to convince him to solve the problem, to save his life, to be there for the child, and to be there for her. And obviously, because he's kind of going down this pit of madness, like you say, it ends where he tries to join them together as one being. And it obviously, it doesn't, luckily doesn't get into the pod, and she basically breaks away, and he ends up going through the pod again. And this time when he comes out, he looks barely human. And this for me is one of my favorite shots in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
literally, like David Cronenberg knows exactly what he's doing. Like I would definitely say this Fly is much superior over the first one. But for me, even though they've got the same title and this is a remake, I do consider them two completely different things.
The original, it's a fun watch, but this one, it's not just a great horror movie, but it's a really thoughtful commentary on disease and dying, and it like does hit you on an emotional level the original couldn't dream of.
Yeah, and the film basically ends where he sees her breaking her heart, and she's got this shotgun, and he basically grabs the shotgun and he points it to his chest, and he basically wants her to end it. He finally, I think, the last part of him that is human realizes there's no going back, and she ends up killing him. And it basically ends on a real sad note. There's like no happy endings in this whatsoever.
And it ends abruptly too.
It ends abruptly, yeah.
Which they like, for the longest time, they couldn't figure out how to end this. They experimented with shots of her just sleeping pregnant where it's indicated she accepted the pregnancy. Was an alternate ending where she gets back together with Stathes. And then there was a bizarre ending where she had a dream where her baby had like butterfly wings. Look that one up online. It's weird, but they just went with the abrupt ending, which was the best.
Yeah. The abrupt ending was the best, where it basically ends where she's just in despair over his death. And it's like it like give it like a final moment. But you always knew when you found out she was pregnant that if this had done well, that they would probably lead to a sequel. So, Anubis, your overall thoughts and opinions of this version of The Fly?
Like Anthony have said, like, you know, I remember seeing the original way back when, the black and white, and you know, it's okay. You know, obviously for its time, it was strange. You know, the guy walking around with like a fly head and stuff, but it was more literal. This one gives you a little bit of a taste of like thinking outside the box. So yeah, we're seeing a guy transform into a fly, but it has so much more meaning behind it for many different reasons. Again, all three of the actors, the main actors, carried this film, and they were all amazing, top to bottom. And again, as Anthony said, there's so much emotion in here. Like, there's a moment where Goldblum's character is in the bathroom, and you know his teeth's falling out and stuff, and then Gina Davis shows up. And they're having this is when she's going to try to tell him that she's pregnant and she can't quite get it out. But he knows that he's not coming back at that point. So he hasn't really figured out what he wants to do yet in terms of either fix it himself, or as we find out later, he wants to try to combine them. But at that moment, he's like, I just want you to leave. And you can see through all the prosthetics and all the makeup, he's like crying. Like it's like he's very upset because he knows he's doing the right thing, but it hurts him. And it isn't until a little bit later that he overhears that she's carrying his kid that's when things go off the rails, and he tracks her down. So I like all the emotion put in. Even when she has to kill him, she can't do it right away. She like is just fighting with herself because she loves this guy. And you know, even though he's not anything close to what he was, you know, she's like, she just has a hard time with him. So the ending is fine. It's just, you know, I don't know. I guess I kind of expected just a little bit more, maybe just fade out with her like crying and, you know, sitting there as it kind of goes away in the black, but it kind of just goes boom. So it's a little bit weird when that happens. And so I think the second film does a little bit something similar. But that one at least has a little bit more of a conclusion that I like better. But ultimately, this film is still so good, and it still gives you the best special effects that you can ever see in a film. This is why I miss this era so much. It's so good. That's how they do shit. Like every time a younger independent artist does this with their films, like I can throw love and praise to them, because like they are nodding to all this.
Yeah, so if anybody's like wants to study special effects or especially practical special, I think this is one of the go-to films that you need to watch, because it's so well done and so well put together that honestly, it's just what David Cronenberg was able to do in this was just outstanding. Like, just amazing filmmaking.
Well, you got this, you got The Thing, you got American Werewolf, The Howling, like all that time period, all this shit that they've been doing with practical effects is just top notch. You can't really beat it.
Yeah, another film that he did great special effects on, what is it, Nightcrawler or
Nightbreed?
Nightbreed. I really enjoy Nightbreed.
Yeah.
Nightbreed for me is another amazing movie that he did. Anthony Jordan, your like overall thoughts of The Fly?
As I alluded to earlier, when I first seen this movie, I did not like it, and I was just not prepared for basically what was a brutal look at a man dying from a debilitating disease and the tragedy that goes along with it. And when I rewatched it when I was older and more mature, I saw this film for the tragedy it really is and just the brilliant performances and special effects. And yeah, this film does end abruptly and doesn't give you any comforting answers, but that's what happens when you lose a loved one. They're gonna fade when they finally fade. It's gonna be abrupt and you're gonna be left without comfort. So this film, why it's not one I find the rewatch ability is really there for me because I really have to be in the right mood to watch it. I think it's still a absolutely brilliant masterclass of a movie.
Like I said, for me, it's one of them films that I can go back to because I just like the elements of science fiction, but the mixture of practical effects and horror, and the way that David Cronenberg took this story from the 1950s and put this dark twist and spin on it, but it's also filled with a lot of sadness that you do not expect. And I think because of the change in tone,
Goldblum still has like his subtle comedy in here, which I always found endearing because that moment he pukes on himself, it's like, oh, that was disgusting. It's just subtle things going on there. So that's very much, I love Jeff Goldblum. I think he's such a great actor. So
since we're still talking about this one, there's, if you want to call it, so there's technically another remake. They made an actual opera based on this movie.
All right.
I kind of just want to see it just for the absurdity of a fly opera.
Yeah, but this film, like you say, it's a good film. And then, of course, we'll get The Fly 2. So, The Fly 2, as we know, like father, like son, because of the financial success of the first one and the fact that it got a lot of Oscar buzz, they decided, right, most films, let's jump on the bandwagon and do a second movie. But this is no way like Joker, the second Joker movie. This sequel does have some good moments in it. It does have some good things in it compared to the Joker 2, which are just diabolical.
This one, it feels like they were actually trying.
Yes. Actually did the best to try and connect the dots to the first one. So The Fly 2 is a 1989 American science fiction horror film directed by Chris Wallace. The film stars Eric Stoltz, who, as you know, should have been in Back to the Future, and then, they got rid. and Daphne Zuniga and is the sequel. And is the sequel to the 1986 film The Fly. It itself is a remake of the 1958 film of the same name. Stoltz's character in the sequel is the adult son of Veronica Coffey and Seth Brundle, a scientist who became human-fly hybrid as a result of an experiment gone awry. Played by Jeff Goldblum in 1986. Remake, with the exception of footage of Goldblum from the first film, John Getz was the only actor to reprise his role, with another actress filling the Gina Davis role as Coffey. In the opening birth scene, The Fly 2 was released by 20th Century Fox on February the 10th, 1989. Unlike the previous film, this film received negative reviews and grossed less at the box office than its predecessor.
Rubbish.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, but since you mentioned Goldblum, fun fact with the footage they used in this, that was actually his test screening footage that got him the role in The Fly.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Was there any... Sorry, we got yawning. That's the jet lag from Chicago.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the reasons why Gina Davis didn't return, even just for the paycheck?
I think it was because she was outraged they'd kill her character off so quickly.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but that's one thing that it's a minor nitpick, but that's one thing that I was kind of annoyed with because, you know, we're going to get into this movie. This movie is way underrated, but like, it would have been cool just to see her come back, even if it was just for that moment. I mean, good thing they did. They didn't really focus a lot on the face of the girl replacing her, so it didn't really matter in the end. But I thought that was really kind of like the only element that this second film would have needed, because at least would have connected it a lot more than it did. We know by name, but it was just a shame. I don't know what the real reason was. Maybe it was because they killed her off, but
I'll say this: like, all they needed to do was just put an oxygen mask over her face, and it wouldn't have been as noticeable.
Yeah.
Or they could have, like, I don't know if they did test footage or something with Gina Davis. They could have done like some sort of like a video report, showing her, like,
they could have stole from that dream sequence that you had in the first one. They could have stole some of that.
Yeah,
they could have done like some of that where they like put like a filter over it that was like in a delivery room giving birth, and then all you would have to do is just show her face a couple of times, and then maybe sounds weird, just a pair of legs and the egg sac coming out.
They probably would have had to pay her royalties though, so that might be why they didn't try.
Yeah. But so this film set several months after the event of the first one. So as you know, Gina Davis's character, who, like you said, is played by a completely different actress, she's next seen in the hospital giving birth, but she doesn't give birth to a baby. She gives birth to this giant sack, and she, because of the extremeness of the birth in this uncomfortable situation, she sadly passes away. But then the egg sac opens up to reveal what looks like a perfectly healthy baby boy. Once that happens, the guy who was in charge, or not in charge, he was the guy that funded Seth's experiment, Jeff Goldblum's character's experiment. He then takes the boy, adopts him, and names him Martin. And is it Anton Bartok? Is that the name of the owner of the... Yes.
Yeah.
So then after that, you then see Martin later on fully grown up. And, you know, he's then basically, Martin's grown up, he's like in this clinical environment. It feels to me like something like what you would say in Stranger Things. Like he's stuck in like this, you know, like the labs in Stranger Things. He's like stuck in this clinical environment. He's grown up. He wants to, like, you know, have a normal life because he's literally been kept behind doors and bars his entire life.
The researchers clearly hate him.
Oh, the researchers don't even think he's human. They treat him like he's just an experiment. And he's mentally manipulated and tortured. And Bartok as well is basically just saying things that he knows he wants to hear just to, like, keep him on his side.
We're agreeable.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing is, when he's there, even though he looks like a normal person, he's physically, you know, grown faster, stronger. He's got amazing reflexes. You know, he you know, all of the kind of things that Jeff Goldblum's character was starting to feel and experience just before he physically started to transform. And, you know, I think was it between the ages of 3 and 10 he started to, like, you know, he started sneaking around and, like, walking around the facility without being seen because he had the ability to do so.
Not quite 10, because when he's an adult, it's his 5th birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, because he had like an accelerated growth rate.
Yeah, so he literally begins to grow rapidly, like a mutant type thing. He just starts growing. And it's when he starts, you know, when he's walking around he's for now basically looks like a young man, and he's only meant to be, like you say, 5. He then basically starts looking around the facility where he finds a room where they do an experiment on animals, and they're just totally devastating, like the abuse that they're doing to these animals, because obviously that's basically it's just animal cruelty, and I think that's like one of the messages it was like similar messages in the first one, basically like how all the cosmetic companies and that or like medical companies would experiment on animals to see if like the latest beauty product will create a rash or create an illness. And so before testing it on humans, they would test them on animals.
Yeah. Also, can we talk about how good the kid that played Martin actually was in this?
Stoltz.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Stoltz.
No, not Stoltz. The child that
played.
Oh,
the younger one? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was really, really, really talented. And, and then, as he's walking around, he does befriend a dog. And the dog, the scenes with the dog later on absolutely broke me heart. Like, the scenes with the dog absolutely broke me heart. So then he's not like he befriends the dog, and then he keeps sticking out, and then he looks over as what's it called? They're called B-17.
B-17, yeah.
Yeah. Then he sees a scientist that resembles so he goes to B-17. When he goes to B, he then sees this device that basically resembles his father's experiment, the telepods. And he basically then realizes they're basically trying to replicate his father's experiments, and it kind of like he's absolutely horrified by it all. And then this is the moment that breaks his heart, where he sees this dog that he befriended, and then they decide to do an experiment on the dog, which goes terribly wrong. And this was the result, which just absolutely, I remember sitting watching this, and if I felt sad in the first one, this one actually breaks my heart more.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think anybody that's an animal lover, this film will tug at your heartstrings. It's similar to like what we've talked about in the past when it comes to Guardians 3. Even though I love the first one, the third one I think is my favourite just because of the emotional connection to the story.
Yep.
With Rocket.
Agreed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he sees this experiment and he's pretty much pissed off. And then, I think is this when he meets like 2 years later, after he's horrified, at this is when he meets, I forgot the name. He's now he looks like he's mature to about 25-year-old. And then Bartok, instead of keeping him in these laboratories, he presents him with a bungalow.
Yeah, I think that after the thing with the dog, like, because he wasn't even supposed to be in that part of the building, and so in order to kind of help him cope with what happened, I think they were like, well, we're gonna eventually give you freedom, as they call it, by putting him in an apartment, thinking that he has privacy, but we learn later he doesn't really have privacy. But it was almost like kind of like we're just going to sort of give you freedom to get your mind off of everything else that's going on.
But it's all like a distraction tactic on his part. Yeah. He even offers to show him the tapes of his father's recordings, like the recordings that his mother did. And like Anthony said, they actually used the footage of Jeff Goldblum when he was auditioning for the movie, the first one.
Yep.
And so that's all part of like a way to manipulate him. And eventually he accepts Bartok's proposal of like living on this facility and to like keep quiet about the experiment. And this is when he worked, and I think he also like decides he's going to help them with the experiment. And this is when he meets is it Beth Logan?
Yeah, but I don't think he was actually initially trying to help them. I think part of it was when they allowed him to look at his dad's stuff, I think they were hoping he would try to take over the scientific part of it because he's so smart. So they were kind of using him to try to unlock his dad's mysteries. And even though he did, he also was forward thinking. So obviously later he changes passwords and stuff so that he has access to stuff. But there's this moment in there when he's deciding that he's going to go and work on the pods that some of the guys watching him like smile. They're like, yeah, we got him. He's going to help us, indirectly help us figure this shit out. Because you have all these scientists who are trying to break the code, and they figured that the young man will be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where he befriends Beth, and they become good friends. It's a similar story that happened with his mother and his father, where he befriends her, and this is where he's even horrified more, where he's seen the experiment with the dog and he assumes the dog's been put down or is dead. And then he discovers actually that they've kept the dog alive. He was in tremendous pain. That's basically living this horrendous life.
That's the worst part.
Yeah, it absolutely breaks your heart. And then he decides to euthanize the dog himself. He puts it out of its misery. And the saddest part is, which brings it to you, the dog recognizes him, and it still looks upon him like a friendly dog. And it's like so he euthanizes the dog. He goes back to Beth and he's like, you knew about this all along, which I didn't really know anything about. And then that's really funny. I'm talking about sadness in animals, so Logan comes up for a hug.
At least when the dog came out of the telepod, he did get revenge on one of the scientists because he lost some fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And then basically what happens then, he basically decides that he needs to help them to save the animals. It's more about stopping the animals from being, experimental. So he perfects the machine by looking at the notes or whatever, and then he then realizes the same thing as his dad. He needs to teach the machine to read and study DNA. And by doing this, he perfects the machine. And the first thing they do is an experiment with a kitten. And the kitten comes out unharmed.
Oh, that scene was so tense the first time watching this.
Oh, it is, because the first thing you're like, I'm not being funny. If before I had cats, it probably wouldn't have bothered us. But now I've got my babies, my little fur babies. If I'd watched that for the first time with my cat, I think I would have been on the edge of my seat. I probably would have been on the ceiling.
And that's sort of the setup because of, what happened with the cactus. Like they basically, when he puts the kitten in there, they're like, as a viewer, you're like, oh God, no, not this kitten. So once it comes out okay, like.
So this is where he discovers, with doing all these experiments, he then hears about this fly human hybrid and all of this stuff through in Beth, and that's when he starts to get suspicious of Bartok and like all of this stuff. So to fast forward a bit, he then discovers that Bartok hasn't been truthful to him. He's been building like this idea of who his father is and who his mother is, and then he was pissed off with the horrible experiment to animal. This is when he gets so suspicious, he then goes round the bungalow and discovers that it's got cameras and spy equipment, and this is where he goes to confront Bartok and discovers the true fate of what happened to his dad. That his dad had such a horrific experience and a painful experience of this mutation. And Bartok basically reveals, I'm just hanging around till you start to mutate.
Yep.
And this is where shit gets real, because he's like now frantic that he's potentially going to turn into like a creature like his father. Which obviously, as the film progresses, and it is a slow burn to get to that point, but he does eventually begin to change. one thing I want to show is the actual, like I say, I love the fact the first one used a lot of practical effects. Now, what they did with this one, when he begins to mutate, he's like, because I guess he is a mixture of strong human DNA with the fly DNA, his mutation is on a much more aggressive level. Like his size, in how he transforms, and when you finally get his main reveal as a mutated creature, he's absolutely monstrous.
Here's how I kind of like look at that. Like what we seen in the previous film, that was just two creatures' DNA, a human and a fly's DNA, very crudely blended together by the teleporter. So that's why it looks so cancerous and diseased. Where he was conceived, so with him, it's a actual pure, if you could use the term pure, a pure blood human fly hybrid rather than just a bizarre twisted splicing DNA.
Where this film feels like it starts off as very similar to the first one. It's all about, experimentation on animals, cruelty. It's about, all of that stuff. It's like about a man but then it went from being that to then finding out that Bartok is going to try and use the teleportation devices to mutate people for profit. Like, I don't know, mutated soldiers or whatever, they kind of take it to the next level. And because he's so full of rage and anger, that's why Martin begins to mutate. But then they don't expect him to go the way he does. And then it goes from being that to like a full-fledged, like, monster movie. It kind of turns into like like Aliens, where you've got the people looking for him and he's hidden in like the rafters and like in the pipework, and then he comes out and he spits his venom and that in like this particular scene.
I love the moment though when they send the Rottweiler after him, and he comes down in his insect form, and he just simply pats the dog on the head, like it communicates with him. I thought that was so cool.
One thing I liked with when he starts to transform in this, it really feels ambiguous as to whether him transporting himself accelerated it or it was just always happening at that rate.
I think he went into the machine and did that deliberately so he could start to mutate. I feel as if he did it because he wanted to change, because he was so full of rage, and he's like, you want to see me mutate? You want to see me become this thing? I'm going to show you just exactly what I can become. But Anubis, do you want to touch on this character? And
so he comes back into the picture, and he's still like kind of bitter a little bit, because obviously when he first opens the door to him, he's like, oh, I see the resemblance between you and your dad. Which, of course, by that point, Stoltz's character is already starting to change a little bit. He's a little bit rough looking and whatnot. But they also wanted him to kind of help them figure out like how maybe to stop it, or what any kind of information he could have gave them, because he obviously was close to Gina Davis and, of course, knew Goblin's character through the issues that happened in the first movie. But again, like he was, even when he was so mad about the past and what the damage, Goblin had done to his body, he was still like, he told Daphne's character, like, make sure you get him on the right page and to follow his gut, because his dad was on to something. So he knew enough to say. So there's like this part where he was like angry, but yet he really didn't want to watch his kid go down the same path his dad did. And this movie does a good job of making sure they both don't go down the same path.
It gives his character a bit of a redemption.
Yeah. And of course he was upset because in the process he did lose his former girlfriend Davis, who dies on the lab table. So like he was very distraught about that.
I think that's why he ultimately helped. Like, despite how rightfully bitter and cynical he is, like, that's still the son of the woman he was in love with.
Yeah. And, you know, then you have the scenes where basically Beth, after this, and after, you know, she sees what's become of his character and how, like, the bitterness happened between, you know, Gina Davis's character and Jeff Goldblum, she then decides, I don't want to kind of, you know, she doesn't want to go down the same path, so she kind of, they're on their own, and she basically surrenders them to Bartok. And because they need the code for the telepod, which is his character has hidden. And when this happens, this is where you're slowly seeing the change in him, but now he gets himself into the giant cocoon. And when he's in the cocoon, this is when the shit hits the fan. Once he hatches from the cocoon, it's no go. And I love how this thing ended, where he went through all of the people, and then he gets Bartok, and he gets his ultimate revenge. He said, listen, you want this? I'm going to show you what happened. And he takes him into the pod. But the best part, the password was Dad.
Yeah.
And I love too, like, he had it set up where if they enter the wrong password, it like wipes the system.
Which is smart, you know. It was like he was going to live or die by whatever happened. But yeah, that password, dude, that just shows you how arrogant Bartok was, because he kept thinking it was going to be something simple. But for the entire movie or entire time that Stoltz's character is growing up, he's like, I'm your dad. You know, he's trying to be like this dadly, fatherly figure. But when he's sitting there in his insect form typing out Dad, you could just see Bartok's face like, how fucking stupid am I?
That's what was great about it was
Yeah.
it was such a simple and obvious password that you wouldn't think of it.
Yeah.
And what I love about this one compared to the first one, this one had a happier ending.
Yes.
So he forces Bartok, who's basically been fucking treating these animals like absolute crap. And, you know, this is probably the first time I was like cheering on for a long time for a villain to get out. I was like, you deserve this, you motherfucker. And he took him into the telepod, and he's like, puts Dad in. Bartok's like, oh shit. Then there's the teleportation, and to my surprise, Martin comes back out pretty much human. But then later on, when he's now going to be walking away to have a normal life, the film cut to Bartok, who's now become this monstrosity.
Living the life of the dog.
Yep.
Living the life of the dog, and he starts eating out of this dog bowl full of slop. And I love the scene where you see the horsefly sitting on the end of the bowl.
Yep.
And there's a comic book sequel to this called The Fly Contagion. And part of the plot is Martin is actually trying to cure Bartok.
Really?
Yeah, but he has some interesting facts before we talk about this film. Like, obviously, give her a final thought. In July 1993, it was reported that development had begun on The Fly 3, with Richard Jeffries writing the screenplay. It would feature the return of Gina Davis's character, Veronica or Ronnie Quaffy, for Brook Films and 20th Century Fox. According to Mel Brooks, Davies was the one who initiated the project, including developing the story and serving as a producer. Production was slated to begin in the fall of 1993. The film would have shifted focus from Davies' character of Ronnie to the mutated twin she conceived with the Seth Brundle from the first film. The film never came to be. So that's interesting that they were going to do a third Fly film by somehow bringing her character back and having twin babies.
And since you mentioned, why did his name just slip me? That director, he did Blazing Saddles.
Brooks?
Yeah, Mel
Brooks.
He actually had a hand in producing the first film, but he requested his name be left out of the credits because he was so synonymous with comedy that he didn't want this to be mistaken for a comedy.
Yep, and that was a smart move. Smart move.
Yes, a smart move.
Which, of
And yeah,
course, Daphne has a connection because she was in Spaceballs, which was produced by Brooks. So
yeah, which makes sense. And she's in the second Spaceballs, the new one.
it's interesting, though, that you bring that up about the third one, because I was going to say I would love to have Davis, Stoltz, and Zuniga come back and do a third one, but I want it to be a little bit more well thought out in terms of just like, I don't want really a straight horror. I want it to be kind of like this retrospective, a little bit more sci-fi, a little bit more of them thinking about the past and what happened and how they can work towards the future. You still have to have some sort of drama or whatever in there, but
the fact that they were bringing Gina Davis's character back and she died in the film, I think the plot twist would have been that the woman we think is Gina Davis is a clone of the original.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand how they could have brought her back since she died in childbirth.
Yeah, Stoltz's character could have been the one to kind of create that, somehow.
That could have been the big twist, that she herself is a clone, but the clonage goes wrong and then she herself begins to mutate.
Yeah.
That would have been some sort of twist, because he's now fully human after the end of the second one. If it's going to be called The Fly 3, or it could have been called The Fly 3, The Mutation, or The Clonage, or something, they would have to give it a unique twist and change. And I think that would have worked. Yeah. But according to this, in November 2024, it was revealed that a film set in Cronenberg's The Fly universe was in development with Nick Yatu Juso serving both as writer and director. Now, this director, Neyatu Juso, is an American independent writer, director, and producer. So far, he's worked on films called The Nanny in 2002, Two Sentences of Horror Stories. That's some sort of television show. And he's also worked on short films, African Booty Scratcher, Train, Say Grace Before Drowning, Black Swan Theory, Flowers, and Suicide by Sunlight. So I have never ever heard of this film, and I've never ever seen or heard of his film called Nanny. So Nanny is a 2022 American psychological horror drama. Like I say, it was both written and directed by this person. Oh, it's not a male, it's a female. It's Nekayatu Jusu, and she's a female film director. And guess what? That film called Nanny was produced from Blumhouse. So
that's not a good sign.
So does that mean that if this gets off the ground and it's going to be connected to the Cronenberg Fly universe, is it going to be a Blumhouse production?
Oh, I hope not.
I just thought I'd share that with you all. But anyway, back to The Fly 2. Anthony Jordan, your overall thoughts on the sequel?
Well, definitely in terms of quality of film, not as good as The Fly 1, but like Anubis said, it's extremely underrated. What this film lacks in quality, it makes up for with a fun factor, yet it still does deliver on emotional moments. Like Stat as he's just as good in this as he was in the original. And it is kind of an emotional thing to see that redemption where he's like, oh yeah, they're going to be looking for your car. Here, take my keys. The Eric Stoltz was great. The other supporting cast was great, or just good enough. And although this is the inferior film because it has that fun factor and I don't have to be in the right mood like I do with the previous film, this is a film I find myself coming back to more often.
Yes. DJ Anubis.
Yeah, so again, the funny thing about both the movies is that they both approach the emotional aspects a little bit differently. In the first one, it's more about the romantic connection, whereas this one has the romance, but it's a little bit more about the animals, about the connection to life, how like if you were to look at it from a how they used like Procter and Gamble would do experiments on animals for their products, like deodorant and stuff like that. So it approaches it in a way that you can, again, like The Fly, you can think of it from a different angle. Like the first one was a little bit more about illness and stuff like this. This is a little bit more environmental type stuff. Even though it's not at fault for being as busy as it is with all the characters, it's kind of important to the film because obviously we're picking up a different type of film where a young boy, this is almost like the horror version of the Truman Show. Like this kid's being watched his entire life and they know exactly what he is, but he doesn't really understand until later. But the emotion's all there. The acting is great. Again, I've enjoyed this one so many times as much as the first. I do agree with Anthony. It's a little bit underneath the original first one because, it is a little bit too busy. But you kind of said it earlier, Kevin, that at some point this movie kind of turns a little bit more into a sci-fi action film because he's starting to attack all the security guards and all this stuff going on. So it kind of like goes around being a little bit different than the first film, but that's sort of what sets it apart. So I still enjoy this film. Like I haven't watched them both in a while, so it was kind of fun to crash course through them earlier today.
That was the same. So like I say, I can always go to both of these movies, and I always find something different with them and something unique in both of them. And I like both the messages that each film gives off. Of course, the first one is the superior of the two, but I appreciate the second one. And people say the second film isn't as good as the first one, and yes, it's not, but I think it's a great organic continuation of the first one, and it's still worth a watch compared to the first one. And obviously, ratings-wise, for me, I would give the first one an 8 out of 10. The second one, I'd probably give just one below, 7 out of 10. There is still a lot of watchability in these, but the second one's always more heartbreaking for me, personally. So, what would you rate these films, Anubis?
I would give the first Fly film a 10 out of 10. I would give this one, the second one, a 9 out of 10.
Nice. Anthony?
I'm right there with a DJ Anubis. First one, 10 out of 10. Second one, a 9 out of 10.
Yes. But both great films, another great set of movies have decided to talk about. The next set of movies we're going to be talking about in the month of August is the See No Evil films, the ones that were produced by the World Wrestling Entertainment, starring Kane, aka Glenn Jacobs. So they're two other back-to-back sequels, and the reason we're doing back-to-back sequels and keeping away from big franchises because the month of October is going to be one hell of a month, which we'll talk about at a later date. But coming up on the entertainment headquarters this Sunday on the 19th, I'm going to be doing a review, another classic Kaiju Connections classic Kaiju film that we're going to go way back to The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And then later on next week, I'm connecting once again to my good friend, my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis, for his pick for the Retro Classic Movie Show. We're going to be talking about Mad Max 2, 1981, aka The Road Warrior. Probably the best of all the Mad Max films, in my opinion. But that's what's coming up on the entertainment headquarters, apart from a couple of reviews that are going to be hitting the channel. Evil Dead Burn. I'm also going to be, hopefully, I think potentially Saturday, seeing the Odyssey. So it'll be interesting to see if it's the epic that everyone's claiming it to potentially be. But what is coming up, Anthony Jordan, on Anthony Jordan's Movies and Gaming?
Right now, immediately, Return of Godzilla-thon. I have Godzilla vs. Biollante. Later on this month, the 25th, I think it is, or 6th, around there, me and DJ Anubis are doing another underrated film in Phantoms, and I'm going to be gearing up for my Montober soon, and I got a good lineup for that.
Nice. Phantoms. I don't know if I've even seen that. I'm trying to think. So
I think it was like late 90s, I think.
98, 99, around there.
Nice. Right. Is it like similar to like something like The Faculty? Was it like one of them type of movies?
It's definitely a Dean Koontz. It's based off a Dean Koontz novel, but I kind of, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it has a good cast. It's not bad.
Okay, to give you the initial setup, two sisters are returning to their hometown to, I think, visit their mother. And when they get there, it's a complete ghost town. Everything's gone, and it's the mystery about why everyone disappeared and like what caused it. And it does have a good cast. Even Peter O'Toole is in it.
Oh no, Peter O'Toole. That sounds. Oh, I'll have to check it out. I can't remember if I've seen it or not. But anyway, my good friend DJ Anubis, what is coming to the Metal Tavern Radio?
So tomorrow around 1-ish, it won't be live, but at 1-ish, I'm getting together with Jay Call. He's my brand new co-host of my Kaiju Unlimited series. Obviously, we can have special guests from time to time if they want to join in. But right now, I've been solidifying guest slots for just, concentrated people on my show. So we're going to tackle the Rhedosaurus from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, actually preparing for Kevin's stream on Sunday. So
nice.
We're going to do that, talk a little bit about the kaiju itself, whereas with Kevin, we're doing both, basically. Then later in the evening, as I introduce my other new co-host, Rick Meyer, it's for my Lone Wolf of Dub series on all things martial arts. We're going to be reviewing the movie 7 Steps of Kung Fu. Then on Monday, I'm doing a little thing for my Tarantula channel where I'm going to be talking about the right way and wrong way that I feel about how you transfer creatures or breed them, how you move them from one container to the next, because there's some people out there in the hobby that to me just are a little bit reckless, and so it's kind of concerning.
I've seen some of those videos. A little bit reckless is putting it mildly.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of talk a little bit about that on my channel. And then Thursday, I have to get with Anthony which day on Thursday or Friday he wants to do Phantoms. I haven't really put that in stone yet, but I'll talk to him. But Thursday night at 8, I'm joining Olvin, I believe, Geek on their channel for the Shin Kamen Rider. I need to watch that yet, but we're going to be talking and reviewing that. So they invited me to come talk a little bit about that.
Nice.
Friday, obviously, Retro Movie Classic Show. I'll be with you, Kevin, to do the Road Warrior. Very happy about that. Saturday, I'll be getting with Jedi, where we're going to be doing on his channel, talking Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King.
Oh, nice.
And then later in the evening, Silver Screen Savants returns on Elvin's channel, and we're going to review Angels in the Outfield. So that's depicted.
Oh, yes. Is that the one with Danny Glover?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Sounds fun. But yes, as always, as you can see, these amazing content creators are bringing us some amazing content. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Metal Tavern Radio with my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis. Please like, share, and subscribe, of course, to Anthony Jordan Movies and Gaming. And if you wish, please like, share, and subscribe to the Entertainment Headquarters for more Into the Darkness and more content with similar nature. So, as always, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, and we'll catch us all at the next one.